out there who was tying people up to trees where nobody could hear you scream.
In 1996, after a dog dug up a human skull in a Northport, Florida backyard, investigators unearthed the remains of an unidentified victim. 4 months later, detectives in neighboring Charlotte County discovered the gruesome remains of 2 more bodies in the backyard of a new housing development.
As I got closer, I could see his genitals had been removed.
I've done this for a long time, and I've seen some pretty bad things. This ranks up there with the top of them.
Our theories on why the genitals were removed was that they're taken to remove evidence. If you're performing a sex act on someone, you're going to leave DNA, you're going to leave something. So by removing that particular item, you're not leaving any evidence.
It was scary to know that we were dealing with someone capable of doing that. And it made me wonder how difficult it was going to be to catch this person.
A skull, a torso, and a fresh body. Were the remains of these 2 victims the work of one ruthless killer? Or was this simply a gruesome dumping ground?
The fresh body that we found had just been put there maybe the night before.
Who fell prey to these atrocious crimes? Investigators worked quickly to identify the most recent victim.
Well, we were able to recover fingerprints from the victim. We were able to take those fingerprints and run them through a database. And when we did that, we got a hit that they matched a white male identified as Richard Montgomery.
None of us could really believe it. And I think it took a while to sink in. The pictures still haunt me. He was just disfigured. I've never seen anything like it. Just badly beaten.
Just 21 years old, Richard Montgomery was barely an adult. News of his senseless murder crushed his family and friends, especially his buddy, John Jacoud.
I really can't talk about it. It's been really hard on me. Richard was living with his sister and his brother-in-law, and they had a young child, and they took care of Richard. They all took care of each other, really. Richard was such a great uncle, you know, and he's always eager to help the family, and he was there for them.
Like most kids his age, Rich hustled through life, always chasing a buck.
He was very eager to make money, you know. There was some construction jobs and things, you know, but just to contribute and help out with the family.
Mostly, John and Rich were just a couple of kids without a care in the world.
And he'd talk about cars and jobs and girls and things that 20-year-old people talked about back then. He was, you know, tall, thin, good hair. He was really good with the women. They loved the way he was. He was just so full of life, and all people loved him, you know. We just wondered how something like that could even happen to Richard. He just did not deserve it.
As Rich's family and friends struggled to figure out why such a loved guy was so viciously murdered, investigators were desperate for answers to these grisly crimes. They started by trying to identify the victim found in the same yard as Rich.
These 2 bodies that we found were probably feet away. When the torso was found, the back tissue was still there. It was kind of preserved because it was laying on the ground. When they rolled the torso over, there was a tattoo still visible on the back. We basically made that tattoo public to try to find out, anybody know a person has this tattoo?
It was a bewildering case for investigators, who needed to act fast to catch a killer. But first, they had to meticulously comb through the crime scene.
We're probably not going to find anything that's going to jump out and say, you got it. It's going to be microscopic. So we got to be very careful on what we collect, how we collect it, how we process the bodies.
We did not find any clothing in the area. We did not find any murder weapon. We only could assume that the person responsible for murdering these people took their clothing with them.
Hours into their painstaking search, the detectives finally discovered a possible clue on the mutilated body of Richard Montgomery.
When he was swabbed, they found a paint chip down by his hip.
The paint chip was collected along with other fibers and hairs. Until the evidence was analyzed, detectives could only hope it would provide a link to the killer. But a search of the backyard did reveal an even more perverse M.O.
We were able to find rope marks on the trees.
When you consider the victim's height, the victim had ligature marks. It's at the same levels as the trees, like people were tied to it, and it was rubbing into the tree.
You got a person who's basically tortured these people.
Within hours, word of the horrific scene was circulating through the community of Charlotte County.
As the facts trickled in, we were all wondering, who is doing this? What is happening? They just knew that there was a grisly murderer out there somewhere who was tying people up to trees out in the middle of nowhere, where nobody could hear you scream.
As detectives began piecing together clues about this crime scene, they suddenly recalled the bones found 4 months earlier in a Northport backyard.
I called Northport PD and told them, I said, hey, look, we've got 2 more bodies. At that point, we started comparing notes on our crime scenes, on our victims, and everything seemed to be the same thing on all 3 bodies. They were all laid out in the woods. They were all naked with no clothing, no belongings.
Was it possible all 3 deaths were the work of the same sadistic killer?
We went back out to the Brown's backyard and looked around, and we found the same ligature marks on the trees up in Northport.
In an instant, the detective's greatest fear was realized.
Now what we have is a known serial killer, and we know that it's going to happen again if we don't catch this person.